What's up, everybody? Jaron Fritz, aka Frizzy Visuals. I'm the creative director for Colorado State Athletics with multiple years of professional sports design and photography experience. And this is not your average YouTube video. 100 questions, 100 answers in regards to the sports creative industry. In honor of us eclipsing the 1,500 subscriber mark here on the channel, we're doing a Q&A. We've gathered 100 of the most popular and frequently asked questions for sports designers and photographers, and I'm going to answer every single one of them right here in this video. A big shout out to everyone who reached out in the DMs and comments with their questions. We've included many of those along with others that we found online. This is going to be a bit of a long one, and I haven't read all these in advance, so you're getting the purest off-the-cuff reactions. So let's dive straight into question number one, which is, how did you start making money in sports photography? Well, I started out doing design and video for free as an investment into myself with the hopes of making money in the future. I actually ended up making money before I started taking photos specifically, and I was already hired by the University of Wyoming for purely graphic design. It wasn't until my first football season where I technically took my first photo. What program do you use to edit your photos? Lightroom Classic. However, I started out on Photoscape in high school, and I think it was free back then. What lenses do you use for sports photography? Talk dirty to me then. I love talking about some gear. My main lenses are the Sony GM1 70-200 f2.8, the Sony GM 35mm 1.4, the Sony FE 16mm to 25mm f2.8. I also have a Tamron 150-500 that I barely use, and then I have a macro lens that I use to scan film. How did you start taking photos? Well, when I was in my last season of college basketball and applying frantically for jobs in the design field, I noticed that a lot of positions required photography as well as design. There were no jobs that wanted design and video as a combination, which was what I was doing at the time. So I knew in order to be desirable in the field in the future, I would have to pick that up as a skill as well. Do photographers need to be able to use Photoshop to have a higher chance of getting hired? That's honestly a really smart question. Quick answer is absolutely. There are many jobs out there that require photo-specific skills, which is great. However, your favorite D1 photographers probably double up as either a social media manager or a graphic designer as well. I've seen job openings that are pure photo specific, and that's great. Every school should have at least a couple pure photographers with them. If you're really trying to find your way in, getting as many tools in the tool belt as possible is great. So graphic design would definitely up your chances. Are you going to start an OF? I assume you mean autofocus, but that's with an A. And yes, I use continuous autofocus while I shoot literally anything. What kind of training or workshops would you recommend for aspiring photographers? YouTube is honestly so key. There's so much free game on this platform. There's free master classes and tutorials. I would honestly stick with YouTube early on until you start making money. I absolutely need to know how to break out. How do I move from intern to the next step? Step one is a killer portfolio. A one-to-one example of what you bring to the table in a job interview is a portfolio. So if you want to be a graphic designer for men's basketball team, then you need a body of work that demonstrates your talents in that field as a graphic designer for a sports team, so they can imagine what you would be like if you worked for their company, sports team, etc. What's your favorite type of photography, sports or portraits? Well, you can just delete the or because I like sports portraits, or rafter shots, I guess is kind of new. What's your favorite editing technique to enhance colors in sports photography? Honestly, try to keep everything true to color straight out the box. So maybe just a little bit of vibrance here or there is the only thing I really manipulate. How do you handle high pressure moments in a game while shooting? Through preparation and confidence. I know I'm there for a reason. Best tips for building a sports media brand / company. You know, building something from the ground up takes a lot of work and time, so make sure you're doing it not because it's popular or seems lucrative or seems trendy at the time. Do it because it's something that you really enjoy. I've been asked to shoot video on multiple occasions, like sports specific video, not YouTube videos, and it's something that I've turned down, not because I can't do it, but it's something that I don't enjoy. So I think that if you're trying to create a brand, base it off of something that you love, and over time of doing something that you love, your brand will just kind of create itself. You know, you don't have to go too deep with it. I just say start doing what you love and the brand will come. I mean, also word of mouth with athletes is huge, so get a couple athletes on your side. What advice would you give someone starting out in creative design for athletics? Create for teams that need it rather than are the most popular. They will definitely value you more. I started working for a winless D2 volleyball team to try to elevate their profile in hopes that it would translate to them winning or landing better recruits. Don't be outworked. Reach out to other creatives and develop a network of people. I loved working for the volleyball team, by the way. How do you keep up with trends in graphic design and photography? Well, Skull Sparks on Twitter is great for sports design, following other designers and photographers, paying attention to styles that aren't in sports. I also take advice and inspiration from different art forms and see if I can apply that to sports design. I feel like that kind of makes you stand out a little bit. This is the weirdest question of all time. What's your Greek god name if you were the deity of Photoshop? Artboreus, keeper of the artboards. What's your favorite sport to shoot and why? Men's basketball. I feel like I comprehend the sport of basketball the best out of everything, so I'm able to relate and understand what's a good basketball shot, not only for the program, but for the individual players themselves. How do you get media passes and credentials? Well, I've always worked for the team that I am shooting for. If it's high school or smaller colleges, just offer value to them. Say that you can get them free images, explain why you're doing it. If you're young and aspiring, I'm sure that they will want to help you out. If it's at the college level, kind of a sneaky way to get in is reach out to a player, ask if they want specific photo coverage for that game. You know, reach out to player A, ask them, hey, do you want me to come and take photos for you this game? If the answer is yes, you can reach out to the SID of that college and say, hey, I'm shooting for player A. But make sure to not lie about it, because those SIDs will reach out to those players. We know the players, so you're not going to pull a fast one, but that's a great way to get in the door. That's kind of outside of the box. How do you capture the emotion of the game in your photos? That's $1 million question. Understand what's happening in the game, being aware of the players and the moments. You gotta get lucky. How do you handle the editing process for a large volume of photos? I cry and complain mostly. I hate editing more than 120 photos at once. I plug my camera into the TV straight after the game and start culling through those just to try to knock the volume down a little bit. I do as best as I can from that standpoint, and then when I put it in, I hope and pray that I have at least less than 250. Anything more than that, it's probably not going to be edited. How do you organize your workflow for large sports events? I just try to oversimplify, try to break it down into segments such as, pregame, shoot around, warm-ups, first quarter, second quarter, and so on. For each segment, write a list of shots that you want to capture. In each of those, that's a good way to start if you're extremely overwhelmed. I remember when I traveled to BYU and solo covered that entire weekend of basketball where I was shooting and posting, writing copy, all the fun stuff. I had a little shot list included with a posting schedule that was a little cheat sheet for me, so that's kind of my cheat code. What do you do when you feel creatively burnt out? Usually I just try to take a day off. A day off from not thinking about design and photos sometimes really resets your brain. I remember last summer I took off the entire summer from digital photography and tried to learn film photography the best that I could. And then once fall camp rolled around and I took out the old Sony, it was quite refreshing to shoot digital again, and I felt rejuvenated. Advice on how to get yourself out there. I think just reaching out to people, LinkedIn, Instagram DMs, talk to people on the sidelines of games. You can always reach out to athletes to see if they want some personalized or individualized workout photos. I think that's a really great way to kind of build up your network through word of mouth. Just create, your audience will find and follow you. It might take a lot of work at the beginning, but trust me, once you have a little bit of following, a little bit of swag to you, they're gonna come. What was your first camera? Oh, I had some busted Rebel T6, I think. My mom gave it to me, and it was her first camera when she first started getting into photography. The first camera I bought was a Lumix G4, which I then sold for a Sony FX3 because I was on the video train back then. I traded that in for a Sony A7R5, and then I recently just added the Sony ZV-E1, which I am recording on right now, so it's been quite a journey. What are your camera settings for sports photography? Well, I try to keep my ISO as low as possible. Sometimes that means sacrificing your shutter a bit. Indoor basketball, when I'm shooting on a 2.8 lens, I usually go about 500 shutter and 1250 ISO. I never creep above 1250 ISO at any point. If I'm able to bump the ISO a little bit lower, like 800, and then I put my shutter on 800, that works great. When you're shooting outside, it's truly every man for themselves. How do you get access to restricted areas during a sports event? You can first show the value that you bring the team. I know the men's basketball staff is cool with me going in the huddle because I know that I'm not there just to boost my portfolio, but I'm there to get shots for the guys. Or you could just be faster than the bouncers and get a couple shots before they catch you. Should I go to college for photography? Well, you should definitely go to college in some capacity, whether it's for photography, media studies, design. It's completely up to you. I went for media studies and learned no transferable information to what I specifically do now. However, I needed that piece of paper to get the jobs that I've had. Plus, college gives you more time to work on your craft before rent and overall life starts to crush your soul. How do you approach a shoot when you're working with new athletes or teams? I feel like this is more directed towards media day shoots. I tend to over-explain things. Nothing is worse when you have a kid who isn't confident up there in what they're doing, and then you explain it poorly, and then they get embarrassed, and then you get embarrassed, and then you have to go and show them. So I just over-explain right from the jump. Treat them as people, have a little fun, command the room so they can just kind of follow your lead. What was your biggest learning experience project? I think my biggest learning experience project it's kind of broad. So I came into my first job at Wyoming thinking I could do everything, which you can't really, or maybe I'm just an idiot. But I wanted to take all 7 of the sports that I was working with, create an individual brand for each of them, and then at the end of the year, I would have 7 projects on my portfolio with these different looks and identities, and it quickly just became a jumbled mess in my brain. I couldn't keep all 7 identities straight in my head. I looked back 12 months later, and I was honestly sad to look at my design work. I was extremely disappointed in myself. Nothing ever looked the same, and it was like 7 separate designers made the portfolio work that I spent all this time working on. So I knew I had to keep it simple and cohesive. Year 2 of my job was really at Colorado State, where I took my past mistakes of doing everything all at once, putting all my energy into creating one brand, and I did that with men's basketball this year. Created a specific look that was cohesive from start to finish, and it was honestly such a joy. When I looked back at that body of work recently to create my portfolio, it's the proudest of my design that I've been since I was at Montana State Billings. Should creatives have a personal brand? Why or why not? Yes, but don't be in a rush to start it. Once you find your style and your swag, just post the photos that you like, and I feel like your brand will just create itself. What's the most challenging part of working in sports? Well, if you don't love the team or the sports you're working for, it can crush you due to the hours that you'll have to put in to get your foot in the door. I am lucky, however, I'm obsessed. Also, planning random vacations is hard and difficult. You can only really leave during the summer. What's your go-to camera setup for a sports shoot? Sony a7R5, battery grip, 35mm, and the White Mamba. How important is post-processing in your sports photography? It's quite literally everything. The stark difference between a beginner and a professional is clean edited photos. What are your focus settings for sports? I personally go zone and set it to the middle. If I want to creatively frame it, I can just move the zone with a little toggle. How do you stay creative in a highly structured sports environment? This is a question from a seasoned pro. For me, there are definitely a lot of aspects that are structured in sports. You're going to have your game days, your starting fives, your game weeks, posters, etc. But for me, I've always loved the impromptu pieces that happen after the game. Stat graphics and cool areas to highlight within a team is where I get the most creative and try new things. If there are other people's ideas, they might already have a vision in mind for something, so you can do the work. But if you really want to get creative, I would just find something that you want to highlight for yourself, present it to the SID or whoever you need to do, and just kind of run with that idea how you presented it. How did you transition from amateur to professional photography? Built a beefy portfolio that demonstrated I was confident, interviewed well, and tricked a couple people into giving me a chance. Then when I was provided that chance, I over-delivered. Any advice on how to get a job like yours? Just learn as much as you can across different skills, mediums and roles, versatility, and availability. Build a portfolio that proves that you understand everything that goes into a season for the sport that you want to cover, and be ready to grind early on. I remember blasting out applications just hoping to get a foot in the door. It doesn't necessarily get easier once you're in, but if you can show a deep understanding of the work and back it up with a strong portfolio, you'll give yourself a real shot. Favorite shot from this season? Neat Clifford after they won the Mountain West Conference Championship. What's the biggest mistake you see new photographers make? I think worrying about social media before your skill level is there is a mistake. You need to try new things, shoot new sports. You need to fail before you can succeed. And sometimes being able to fail in silence is an underrated thing. If you're worried about competing with photographers straight out the gate, you'll probably be less inclined to try out of the box things and fail. How to start working with colleges. I work with a college, obviously. I would start low. My first design portfolio was with a junior college basketball team, which progressed to a Division II team that ultimately landed me a spot with Wyoming, which is a Division I. So I don't want to say that patience is good, because I also believe just going out there and forcing opportunities for yourself, but realize that maybe you should bring value to lower leagues before you assume a big one wants you. I think just proof of concept helps with colleges, because they're not just going to hire somebody who's super green and out of the box new. How do you choose the right angle for action shots? I like to show what the fan isn't able to see from the stands, provide them with a new or improved perspective, whether that's low on the ground or in the huddle or up from above. Take your viewers somewhere where they haven't seen the event from. What's your approach to creating print/merchandise designs for teams? You know, I think this is actually a learned skill in my mind versus just traditional sports design. Learning my Illustrator workflow took me some time to hone in for sure. But for a t-shirt, for example, I like to search the web and see what other t-shirts are looking like, what other designers are doing, whether it's sports or graphic tees. I'm mostly looking for compositions that I like more than anything. Then I try to copy those at the start, and in the process of copying them, going through edits, moving them around, personalizing them to Colorado State, that's where they start to set apart from my initial. So it's really just that initial spark that I search for online. What's the best way to break into the sports industry? Force your way in, fill a need that's there, do stuff that people need but aren't asking for, and create a killer portfolio. Be creative. What's your design process for creating promotional materials for sports events? I think just capturing the essence of the event. If it's Orange Out, State Pride, you know, the main focus are those colors for us. So using those as a subject and the focal point instead of getting mixed in a cooler design. Marketing events are very cut and dry, and you want to promote them as much as possible without getting lost in the sauce. How do you set yourself apart in a competitive field like sports photography and design? Be versatile, learn a bunch of different styles that you can provide them. Be personable, be fun, be funny. Be someone that someone wants to hang out with. That helps a lot in an interview, whether people like to admit it or not. Just be yourself. Be creative. What's your go-to player treatment style right now? Are you trying to promote my videos right now? I actually have a 7-minute answer to this question. I made an entire video breaking down my player treatment process. Link will also be below. How do you manage your time between shooting and editing photos? So this is funny because I'm the creative director for Colorado State. Photography is not a direct requirement of the role. Graphic design and creative direction is. So if you were to get super technical, photography is not what pays the bills, so to speak. So in the realization of that, I do not edit photos at work, and I actually don't even use work equipment to take the photos or edit them. I edit all my photos at home before or after work. So when it comes to shooting games, editing pictures, and doing graphic design, I treat the photography aspect more of an after hours activity than I focus on graphic design purely at work. How do you approach graphic design for a sports team? That's pretty broad, but honestly, I try to pick apart the personalities on the team. If we have a really gritty team, I'll use pictures of them not smiling or yelling at celebration. If it's a women's volleyball team that is bubbly and fun, I'll try to keep the designs brighter colors. Just getting to know the teams that you work for will really bring the personality out of you for the designs. What's the best piece of gear you've purchased that has elevated your work? 35mm 1.4 G Master butter. How do you deal with the unpredictability of shooting live events? Well, it's awesome, okay? I prefer high stakes when it's a crazy situation where you need to get the shot. I feel I actually perform better as a photographer because I can feel the moment. My worst games are the ones where we play a random team and just blow them out by 60. You just gotta lock in, I guess. What's the most important thing to consider when photographing athletes? This is easy. Think about what you would want or what you think would be cool if you were them. If you were hooping, for example, what would be the coolest pic of you doing that? Try to make them look like the main character or the hero of their own story. I think those are the coolest shots and sometimes really underrated when you're taking photos. What's the key to capturing motion in sports photography? You could try a low shutter shot like this one I did at Wyoming for our pregame runout, or being able to crank the shutter during a day game for football is another great way. If you're indoors, I'd just try low shutter. Do you shoot RAW or JPEG for sports? RAW. I've always shot RAW. There's never been an instance where I shot JPEG. If you shoot JPEG, comment down below why. I genuinely don't understand why. How to learn Photoshop from nothing. Any YouTube video recommendations? Well, first off, I am the creative director for an athletic department who learned Photoshop skills solely through YouTube tutorials. YouTube tutorials and trial and error is the entire reason that I have the job that I have right now. It's definitely possible if you put in the work. I'm currently in the process of building up a library of sports design videos for you and others to refer back to. I felt like once I had made it a full-time career for myself, there was a lot of videos out there that didn't fully explain everything that you need to do. But otherwise, Cal Soscopes on YouTube was the one and only person that I watched while I was coming up. What's the most surprising part of working in college athletics? Honestly, how cool everybody is in it. Most everybody is former athletes in some capacity, so it was a really fun transition to be around elite athletes and elite ball knowers. If you're around somebody who works in sports that didn't play sports, they have elite ball knowledge, guaranteed. What's your favorite sports photograph of all time? Recency bias. I'm just gonna go with the one Anik. How do you know what lens to shoot on and why? Well, if you're on a one camera body setup, it's truly a guessing game. For basketball, I like to start the game on a wider lens because usually teams want to start out aggressive, establish some presence down low. Then in the second half, I transition to a 70-200. Whatever you feel that you can document the day with best is what you should roll with on a one body setup. If you're rolling with two, I'd go wide and long. Just keep it simple. Do you shoot vertical or horizontal more often? Vertical till I die. How do you work with athletes to capture their best moments? I think it starts with having an open dialogue and connecting with them as people. Some kids want pictures, some kids don't care. Just know that we are here to enhance the student athlete experience. We're a resource for them and asking what they want and giving them feedback on great ideas. So just have a conversation really and see what they like. Been working very hard to try to get my work out there. Any more tips? Just keep grinding and never give up. Reach out to people like you are now, see what other people are putting out there, see what's getting them hired. Most importantly too, I know that comparison is often the thief of joy, but finding successful designers, photographers, videographers, whatever you're doing right now, and seeing what their work looked like at the stage that you're at right now. I know my portfolio of graphic design is still on my portfolio website, so if you're trying to get your first job, you can compare it to me when I was trying to get my first job. That portfolio is called MSUB Men's Basketball, I think. It'll be linked below. How do I get exposure with bigger organizations and companies like how you got your job? Well, step number one is a strong portfolio. Step number two is get some expert advice. I mean, it's not a two-step process, but those are the two steps that I like to do. I reached out to some designers that I really admired at the time and sought their expert advice. You know, sometimes you think you're really good because of all the time that you put into it and how much you care. But with graphic design, it's purely about reps, years of experience. So asking someone who has been in the game longer than you and has your dream job that you're trying to get will be able to offer you free game, and 99% of the time they'll respond. So send a couple of graphics out to people that you admire. I think that would help you get an answer to getting into a bigger industry. What's your take on drone shots in sports? Awesome. Need more of them. Are you offering your services? Why are you asking me this? What is your sports photography ick? I think, you know what? Take photos that players look good in, man. I don't want to see a congested face just because the action was cool. You know, we're here to prop our players up, not embark into a photography showcase on our team socials. Also, clear up their skin, man. I'm sick of seeing players with bad skin on my social. You know, throw them an assist. You have 30 pictures of them throwing out assists all season long. Give them one. How do you balance artistic expression with the needs of the sports department? I feel like it's kind of a misconception. It's honestly not as hard as one may think. If your stuff looks good and it works, it usually will align with the university's goals. When finding a job, just make sure it's an environment where they understand that you are the specialist and the master of your field, and that sentiment should be shared from the AD down to whoever your boss is. How do you incorporate branding into your photography work for a sports department? That, my friend, is a high-level question, whoever asked that. The easiest way to do that with your photography is that your style should just match whatever you're shooting. Football is gritty, so those moments of sweat dripping and the look of despair is great if you want to portray a gritty brand, if that makes sense. What's the difference between shooting sports and other types of photography? Well, sports is high pressure. Things only happen once. There's no redos. Most of them are indoors with bad lighting. There's no studio set up for planning, and that's kind of what makes it fun. What is a red flag to look out for in a creative job listing? I guess crazy low pay or reduced hours. Like if they don't want you to work more than 32 hours or something weird like that, that's probably a red flag. I don't know. I guess it's more just preference based for you. I haven't seen any crazy red flags other than low pay and reduced hours. How do you make sure your photos represent the team's brand and identity? Similar to what I answered before, but I'll kind of expand on it. If you want your team's branding to be something that is, come to our games, it's a party every single game that we're out there, then photography should reflect that. Celebrations, crowd interactions, hype, yelling, all that showcases a fun side. On the flip side, if you want to portray a serious championship contending team with grit and grind, then show them dripping with sweat, focus more on the calm before the storm, before the anthem, stuff like that. Whatever your vibe is you're trying to go for, you should make sure that your designs and photos match that vibe. How do you know when you're ready to apply for a D1 job? I mean, do we ever know when anybody's ready for anything? I would just apply to jobs that you don't think you're even going to get a chance of getting. You might just get it. What's the most rewarding part of working in sports design and photography? When they use something that you make as their profile picture. It's really that simple. How do you balance your creative vision with the practical needs of the athletics department? If you're in a good situation, they should align. Sometimes athletic departments focus on speed rather than art, so that might be a conflict right away, but it's all about finding that balance. I personally have always worked in college athletics, so I'm accustomed to speed being prioritized, but if you're new, that's probably going to be the biggest difference. Do any other creators inspire you? Yeah, there's definitely a couple that come to the top of my mind. Zach Kelly over at The Ohio State has some really cool content. He's a great follow on Twitter. I recommend it. Then Will from Georgia and Wags from DePaul are both super talented men's basketball designers in the collegiate space. And seeing their work this past basketball season definitely motivated me to pick up my game for CSU. I think it's really good to have some friendly competition, and every single time that I would see them post, I'd be like, I need to lock in. What's your favorite post-processing technique for action shots? That is a high-level question, my friend, and that is masks in Lightroom. Definitely my go-to. Do you plan your shots before the game? Short answer, I'm going to go with yes. There are certain shots that I know I'm going into that I want. However, there's so much that happens throughout a game that is unplanned and unscripted, but you have kind of a general idea in your head. Is there ever a time you'd shoot with auto settings? The only time that I'd ever do that is when I'm using flash, and I would set that to aperture priority mode. How do you build a portfolio as a sports photographer? I'm planning on making a video on this, but choose your best, most unique photos, mix them up. Don't show all the portraits in one go, all the action in one go. Spice it up, but then try to tell a cohesive story top to bottom. What's your take on working for free to get started? I personally love it. That might be a hot take. Earn your way in, especially when you're young and you're just scratching for something to put in your portfolio. So just take advantage of the opportunity that others don't want. There's gonna be a lot of people that don't want to work for free. And so if you're able to work for free and build up that portfolio, I would just personally treat it as an investment into yourself. How important is storytelling in sports photography? Extremely, probably the most important aspect of sports photography, actually. How important is networking in the sports photography and design industries? It's so cliche, but extremely. Not only for selfish reasons, but to be a part of somebody else's network too is great and fun to help people out along the way. It's also fun to talk to people and designers who you admire. You can look up to them and talk to them, talk a little shop with them, grow knowledge. I feel like that's honestly the best way to share information. What's your process for choosing which photos to showcase after a shoot? Which ones are going to tell the story the best? I like to place them in chronological order for that reason too. If it was a super hot game, showing them sweating. If it was a heartbreaking defeat, show the players heads down, stuff like that. When you think of a 10 grid post, think about start to finish what tells that story. How do you create your graphic backgrounds? This is honestly an insane question because I don't even know how to answer that. I personally just had a picture of this really foggy white forest background that was there when I came into Colorado State, and I just kind of adopted it for my recent stuff, and then I transitioned out of it by fading it out to more of a white background. Personally, my favorite backgrounds would just be a picture of itself faded or blurred out a little bit, but I don't know, just pick something that's textured and that you could see using over an extended period of time for your backgrounds. It's kind of the best answer that I have for you. There's not like a one-way answer. How do you keep your equipment safe during fast-paced games? Well, sometimes my equipment actually keeps me safe. My camera shielded me from a ball to the face, and instead of my camera breaking, it broke my nose. So I guess I worry less about my equipment and more about my fragile body, honestly. How do you handle the editing process when there are tight deadlines? I just lock in. I've realized that no matter how much you put things off, they're still going to be there, so I just try to do them right away. Do you shoot with a specific brand of cameras, lenses, or do you mix and match? I'm Sony everything, all day, every day, not sponsored at all either, although that would make my life a heck of a lot easier if I was. How do you deal with technical difficulties during a live shoot? Luckily with photography, there are far and few between, but I have sat on the baseline and watched a full-length YouTube video trying to figure out something. I can't even remember what it was, but I've been there before. What's the most unhinged thing in your camera bag right now? I feel very boring reading that. I don't have a great answer. Should I include more unhinged items in my bag? What do you even expect me to have? What's the biggest difference between sports photography and other types of event photography? I would say that the only similarity would be sports and weddings just because of the stakes that are involved, but other than that, I would say that sports is completely different. How do you approach shooting a sport you're not familiar with? Well, you can always start with basic isolation hero shots. You can do emotional shots of portraits, stuff like that. I think those are kind of the cheat codes until you start understanding what's actually happening. Shooting anything but action is kind of a cheat code if you don't know what's going on. What was your favorite design from the men's basketball season? There was a lot that was fun. Anything from the rafters was cool. And then there's one that I used a portrait of Neek for. I can't even remember what it was for, but you're seeing it on screen right now. Why do photographers wear vests? Question of the day, I have no idea. And if somebody tries to explain it to me, I will purposefully not listen. It's so dumb. I don't know why. What's the dumbest file name you've used for a project? Sometimes I will watch a podcast or listen to music, and then whatever word stands out to me in that specific moment where I need to name it, sometimes I just name it that. So it's probably something so random and unimportant that I can't even remember it. What's the most unexpected moment you've captured during a game? Not a game, but a spring or fall practice. I broke my nose, so that was unexpected. Does that qualify? How much money have you spent on camera gear? Oh God, if I publicly said that answer, my girlfriend would kill me. Are you trying to get me killed? How do you stay on top of the latest trends in graphic design for sports? Again, Skull Sparks and random Twitter follows are great. Thinking about it, I'm also obsessed with cinematographers on YouTube. I know that probably doesn't seem like it relates, but it inspires me to make really cool stuff. What's the most unique project you've worked on in the athletic department? That's a good question, and I think recency bias will probably win out with this, but this graphic of Bowen Bourne as the bandaged warrior spawned purely from a joke made in an early meeting, and it turned out to be completely true. Making stuff like this is always fun. How do you keep your photography work fresh and innovative in the sports industry? Again, outside influences. If you feel dry, then start looking elsewhere. Watch talented cinematographers and how they frame shots. Maybe steal some of their sauce and bring it over to sports. How do you handle criticism of your work in sports photography or design? I feel like the arts in general is pretty supportive, especially sports art. So maybe we need to bring more hate. maybe we need to start that up. But no, honestly, just never accept criticism from the misinformed. If you get criticism from other sports designers, other people in your field, experts of your field, I'd definitely take that into account and try to learn from it if you made a mistake, or if it's just critiques from coaches and stuff. I mean, that's your clients. You got to work with them on that. I just take that in stride, and you can always save the one that you like for your own portfolio for later. What advice do you have for someone balancing photography and a full-time job? You can start by just dedicating your free time to it. If you really believe in it, just go for it and spend all of your free time pursuing it. Watch videos on it when you can't pursue it, and follow other people who are living your dream job and just kind of visualize yourself doing that. What's the one thing you wish you knew before getting into sports photography? I guess I knew this going in because I never did it to start, but just don't tag players on Instagram. If it's the Division I level or above, I kind of think it's corny, like, yes, I know who Jason Tatum is. Thank you for tagging him on Instagram. Question number 100. What's the one piece of gear you couldn't live without when shooting sports? A fast SD card is actually so underrated. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, first off, thank you. You're a real one. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I've got tons of more content coming your way. Sports design, photography, breaking into the creative side of college athletics, you name it, we are going to talk about it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go take a nap, let my brain recover. Until next time.